sleep is one of the most essential but often neglected aspects of our health. In today's fast-paced world, people often push their bodies to the limit, sacrificing sleep in the process. Unfortunately, many people don't realize just how important sleep is, both for our health and for our success. During sleep, your body's working to support healthy brain function and to maintain your physical health. There are uncountable processes that go on in the body while we're sleeping. Today, I'll only focus on the processes and the functions that happen in the brain while we sleep. Sleep is as necessary for our survival and health as food and water. There are 3 types of sleep that we go through during a full night's sleep cycle: deep sleep, REM sleep, and light sleep. Each of these stages serve important roles in keeping our brain healthy. First up, let's look at deep sleep. Deep sleep accounts for around a quarter of our total sleep time. This is where the brain cleans up and removes toxic waste byproducts that have accumulated throughout the day. This is done by a liquid that's present in our brain and spinal cord called cerebrospinal fluid, washing in and out of the brain like waves, helping it to get rid of accumulated metabolic trash. There's another cleanup process that takes place where parts of our brain that we don't use very often will gradually shrink over time. At the same time, the connections and the parts of our brain that we use a lot will grow over time. This means that parts of our brain that we never use will eventually get lost from our brain. The second type of sleep is REM sleep. This is the type of sleep that's sometimes referred to as dream sleep. During REM sleep, everything we've learned and experienced throughout the day gets put in order and put on the right shelves. The brain creates connections between new experiences and old experiences, which allows us to use old experiences and old knowledge in new ways as they're linked with the new. This processing of our experiences that happen during REM sleep improves our ability to solve problems, and it improves our creative and innovative thinking. Finally, we have light sleep, which accounts for about half of our total sleep time. Many people mistakenly think that light sleep isn't important. It is. It's during light sleep that all our memories from throughout the day is transferred from our short-term memory to our long-term memory. We can think of it like a USB stick that gets filled with data during the day and gets emptied onto a hard drive during the night. If we don't get enough sleep, this USB stick doesn't get fully emptied, meaning that there's less space for learning new things and attaining new knowledge and experiences the next day. We actually know that if we sleep shortly after learning something new, it gets stored more effectively in the brain. So napping after learning new important knowledge or skills can help improve the learning process. So what happens when we don't get enough sleep? When we don't get enough sleep, it won't take long before we start to see the negative consequences. In a recent study, the participants were checked into a sleep hotel for 14 days. The participants were split into 3 groups. The first group would get 8 hours of sleep every night for the 14-day period. The second group would get 6 hours a night, and the third group would only get 4 hours every night for 14 days straight. Before they started the experiment, they measured concentration and reaction times to establish a baseline for each participant. How long do you think it took for the negative effects to start to show for the 2 groups that got less than the recommended 7 hours of sleep? Just 2 days is the answer. After just 2 days of the experiment, the participants in the 6 and 4 hour group started to see a decline in both the concentration and the reaction times. And from that point, the level of concentration and reaction time continued to decline over the 14-day period. Now, the group that got 8 hours of sleep every night saw no changes compared to their baseline. After the 14-day period had ended of the participants getting 4, 6, or 8 hours of sleep, the researchers continued to monitor the participants for a further 3 days. During these 3 days, the participants all got 8 hours of sleep. Now, what's really interesting and maybe a bit frightening is that out of the participants from the 4 and 6 hour groups, no one regained their full brain capacity after the 3 consecutive nights of getting 8 hours of sleep. So not a single person out of the groups with reduced sleep during the experiment time had managed to get back to the baseline levels of concentration and reaction time after getting 3 nights of full sleep. This tells us that it's a lot more difficult to catch up and sleep again than what people think. I often hear people think that they can go through the weekdays with very little sleep and then catch up on the weekend and be ready for Monday again. But this study suggests that it takes longer to pay off that sleep debt and regain normal levels of functioning again. So when we experience a lack of sleep for even just a few consecutive days, we'll start to see a decline in our cognitive functions. We'll typically see things like a decreased ability to concentrate, difficulties staying focused, difficulties thinking clearly and spotting complex patterns, difficulties learning anything new, difficulties remembering things, a tendency to make poor decisions, and difficulties being empathic when interacting with other people. These are all crucial cognitive functions that will determine how successful we are at work or at school. So when these functions are decreased due to a lack of sleep, we also limit our chances of success. Another thing that I just want to point out is that we also tend to be more emotional when we've not had enough sleep. So we'll likely see an increased emotional reactivity, irritability, and difficulties managing stressful situations. We might experience that we get angry or upset more easily than normal. That's because during sleep, the brain processes emotional experiences, regulates emotional responses, and resets emotional equilibrium. Sufficient sleep is necessary to maintain emotional stability and resilience. Now, the interesting thing is that people often don't tend to notice these changes in their mood and behavior. A state of sleep deficit can quickly become our new normal. This means that we don't see all the negative effects, and we can easily convince ourselves that we don't actually need more sleep than we're getting. The unfortunate downside to this is that we don't even realize that we're not performing to our best, and therefore not giving ourselves the best opportunities for success. So all this to say, sleep is super important for our mental and physical well-being, but also for our performance and our chances of being successful in whatever we do. A lack of sleep simply means that we're not performing at our best. If you're now thinking, I don't get the recommended 7 to 9 hours of sleep every night, I have an important question for you. Is it a deliberate decision because you don't feel like you need 7 to 9 hours of sleep? Or is it because you're unable to sleep a full night? If your answer is that it's a deliberate decision, I hope you'll revise that decision after watching this video. Try sleeping 7 to 9 hours every night for at least a couple of weeks to see if you can tell a difference. It can be a good idea to keep some kind of log or journal along the way so you can tell if you're actually seeing any changes. For example, you can score your mood and productivity on a scale from 1 to 10 every day to track if there's any improvements as you get more sleep. If, on the other hand, your answer was that you would like to sleep more, but you feel unable to, either because you struggle to fall asleep on a night, or because you wake up through the night or early in the morning, it's really important to find the root cause of why that is so you can start to tackle the problems. You'll find a million step-by-step guides and pieces of advice online on how to get a better night's sleep. And while there's no doubt a lot of good information, good advice to get from those, they're very much based on a one-size-fits-all approach. If you've tried implementing all these tips that you can find online and you're still struggling to sleep, it's really important to start looking for the underlying reasons for your sleep difficulties. I often have clients who struggle to sleep, and I like to ask them, why do you think you can't sleep? Often I might get a little eye roll implying that if they knew that, they wouldn't have come to see me. But the truth is that often we do have the answers ourselves. If you don't know, try having a guess. More often than not, you'll be right. The answer I tend to hear the most is that I'm under too much pressure in my everyday life. This makes a lot of sense. It's consistent with research that persistent sleep difficulties are often due to an increased activity in the stress part of our nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system. Knowing this means that we need to figure out what's causing that increased activity in our stress system so that we can start reducing the experience of being under pressure. If you ask yourself why you can't sleep, you'll often have a really good starting point to start reducing that pressure you're experiencing and to start working towards improving your sleep. Some of the things I often hear my clients say are, I have too many thoughts to sleep, or I can't find peace. I just feel restless. I feel tired but not sleepy. Or I go to bed too late because I feel like I have so many things I need to do on a nighttime. Perhaps you recognize some of these, or maybe your reasons are completely different. Whatever the reasons, you can use the awareness of it to start working in the right direction. If I'm to give you one slightly one-size-fits-all piece of advice here, it's to make sure to establish a good nighttime routine. It's important to set time aside to be able to wind down and go from being active to being sleepy. Sleep won't come to us if our system is too active. It can be a good idea to spend the last hour before bedtime to start to wind down. Do activities that you find relaxing, lower the lights, and avoid screen time. So in conclusion, many people sleep too little without being aware of the impact that it has on their well-being and the chances of success. When we get enough sleep, we increase our cognitive functions, allowing us to achieve better results, work better with other people, and be more productive and successful in our life. I upload new psychological insights, tips, and tools on this channel every week. If that's at all interesting to you, I'd love for you to subscribe so we can meet again. Thank you for watching this one. Take care, and bye for now.